Yep.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. I'm Laura Richards with That's Where I'm At podcast.
Hi, everyone. And I am Lauren with Life After Discard podcast. I'm really happy to be here with you, Laura, finally.
Yes. So, Lauren and I are doing I don't know, we're sharing an episode today. We're going to be talking about narcissists today, and we're going to be talking about especially covert narcissists, which we were both involved with, and,
Indeed.
and how they get away how they get away with it, how that what they do to fool the world and our experience with that. So we're going to be talking about that today. But Lauren, I actually want to know, like, how did you get into podcasting and talking about this?
Oh, wow. Yeah, great question. So it started with in April of 2023, I was discarded by someone who I thought was the love of my life, but turned out to be a covert narcissist. And I'm sure you've probably heard that in my episodes. And kind of like you, Laura, I just at the time I didn't really feel like I had anyone to speak to about it,
Yeah.
especially me being a therapist myself. It's just, well, you should know how to deal with this and you should know.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, and so I just decided to start writing into different podcasts
Oh.
about just wanting to talk and tell my story. And it just kind of went from there. I met another podcaster who said, you could do your own. And I said, wow, I could, couldn't I? So yeah, it's just been going ever since. I've been a guest a few times and I now host my own. I actually want to know the same about you, Laura, too. So
Yeah, well, I started my podcast in August of 2023, so almost around the same time. Yeah,
wow, yeah.
yeah, we had been had gotten divorced the year before. I thought we were divorcing from irreconcilable differences until a few months later when I found out about his quote unquote new girlfriend. And that's when like the blindfold came off and I started to understand what was happening to me, that he's a narcissist. And the reason is because there is that delayed realization, because in covert narcissism,
Yeah.
they're different on the outside to the outside world than they are in the home. And so it's very confusing. And so I had those few months of healing, right? And so your brain starts to recover when you leave abuse. And I was like, oh shit, he's a
Yeah.
narcissist. And so when I like voraciously started researching, and every single thing started to make sense in my life. We were together 33 years. So every single thing
Oh,
like
wow.
felt like a full download with like a fire hose. It was like so much information. I didn't sleep for 3 days when I first found out because I was so stressed out. My nervous system was so dysregulated. I call that
Mhm.
my second day one, because I thought my first day one was when we got divorced. With my healing. Oh, I'm so healing, and I'm going to the beach, and I'm going to
Right.
heal. And then I found out all this bullshit. So, as I was healing, the same way, I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't understand what was going on and all those things. I didn't get it. People were actually telling me not to talk about it. And you shouldn't talk bad
Yep.
about your
Same.
ex, blah blah blah. You don't talk bad about your ex. And I was like, but I don't understand, he abused me, so why aren't we talking about this? Like, why are we not talking about abuse? Until I found this community that we're in now, right? This whole community.
Right.
Now we feel seen and heard, right? On Instagram for sure, where you feel seen and heard. That's where I met you, where
Yeah.
you actually see people talking about things. And so as I started talking about it, with other people, they came out of the woodwork and started supporting me. And I have a friend who does a podcast, and I said, I think I want to do my own and talk about it and expose. Well, not just expose, but real. It has become the narcissist show. That's what I do now. But it used to be just talking about things that society tells you not to talk about, or you shouldn't be
Right.
talking about it, right? We just,
Yeah.
you are grieving the death of somebody, but aren't you over that yet? That kind of thing. And
Oh, yes, Laura, that is oh my gosh. And that's the biggest thing too. And I want our listeners to
yeah,
know this. I've said this in a few of my episodes. A lot of times friends and family, even if they mean well, they don't get it
yes,
because,
yeah,
especially my mom and a few family members are like, you should be over this by now. But
yes,
what they don't understand is this is not like a normal breakup, or in my
Right.
case, a discard. This is not a normal, hey,
Yes.
it hurts, but we can process it. We can be adults. I was trash. And of course, that sends you spiraling because
Yeah.
you think, well, what did I do wrong? Is it all me? And then again, like with you, I found your Instagram, and I started digging more into like the Raven Scott show and the online
Yeah.
community of holy shit, that's exactly what happened to me. And you don't want to see that. You don't,
I know.
especially me being a therapist, a lot of it was denial for a while because I was just like, no, that's not him. He's just a lost soul, a
I
lost fucking
know.
puppy. Like they want you to believe, right?
Yeah. But it is that, I don't know about you, but, are you empathetic? You give people
Yes,
second chances and all that. You're a
I do.
therapist. You're a therapist. So of course
Ah,
you have that bent. And so unfortunately they do go after that good side of us, and that happens,
yes.
where they take advantage of that, and it's easy for us. So I want to, even though we have lots of episodes that you guys can listen to, I'm just going to give a quick definition is that a narcissist is someone who has a high need for control and a lack of empathy. That's like the baseline. That's just like
Correct.
the cliff notes version, And with covert narcissism, they're two different people. In the home, they are one, and then outside of the home, they are pillars of society. They might be running for president, things like this, they're
Yep,
all different kinds of people. You will see them. Every single person will say, my gosh, they're so nice. I can't believe that happened to you.
correct.
They're such a great guy, but there's a reason why I named my book Married to a Nice Guy.
Yes, I cannot wait to read that. Yes, and there's another trait I want everybody to be aware of too, which was my case.
Okay.
Sometimes as well, covert narcissists can look like the dude from that movie, A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh, okay.
They, yes, they very much, in my case, my ex very much had something I call Peter Pan syndrome,
Oh,
and
okay.
just immature, never wants to take accountability. It's always someone
Yes,
else's fault. And I
always.
want people to recognize that that's a red flag with people. If everything is always someone else's fault and you're
Yeah,
always like getting stepped on and
yeah,
society is treating you, yeah, that was one of the things after I reflected, um, all throughout our relationship, he would say, I mean, a series, again, I'm not going to go into detail, but a
yeah.
series of like business partners, well, they all screwed me over. And
Yes.
I'm just unlucky and life is so hard. So that's another trait to be more aware of because
Yeah,
it's more subtle and you have to be even more careful. And because, in my opinion, it's more insidious because
yeah.
they know that you are empathetic and you will naturally take that comfort role,
Right,
right?
exactly. Yes, and yeah, you're right about that. And that's a thing too, I know in therapy, right? You being a therapist, but I know in therapy they tell us not to use the words never or always. And I have to say that always use always and never with him because
Yeah.
that's how they are. If they're consistent about that, at least, they always blame you. Like every single fight, they turn it around. There's actually a term called Darvo, and they turn it around
Correct.
to make you the victim, to make you the problem for every single fight that you have. It doesn't matter if I walked in the room to talk about how he kicked the dog, somehow it's my fault, And so those are the kinds of things you need to look at when we're looking at toxic relationships, not even marriages, but even your friendships and your family members. If they're always doing some of these, if they're doing these things, do you want to continue to be in a relationship where you're treated so badly? And that was something I started to realize. If nothing changed today, how was I going to live another 40 years with this man? Like, how was I going to do that? And I couldn't
Yeah.
because I didn't even want to be alive. So, and I don't think he would have cared. I mean, they just drive you so insane. So I want to ask you because you're mentioning you got discarded. I got reverse
Mhm.
discarded. So I think
Okay.
we need to talk about the
Yes,
difference because there is a slight difference, and they both suck.
they
So,
are. So I was discarded.
okay.
I was basically blindsided. The week or so leading up to it, everyone knows what the devaluation stage is. You start questioning your sanity. So
Yeah.
we had gotten into a disagreement, and I'm going to go into all that detail when I'm doing the whole season of just my story. But basically, the week leading up, I could tell he was different, and I could
Okay.
tell he was starting to devalue me, right?
Okay.
He started to seem like he didn't want much to do with me, and he
Yes.
started making sarcastic statements. There was one time he even started crying, saying, I just am so confused about us. And I look at this now and I realize now that was a manipulation tactic. So that way I could become
Yes.
the comforter. And I look back at that now and I'm like, wait a minute, you're getting ready to discard me. Why am I comforting you?
I
Of
know,
course,
because
the
we're
me now would be like, well, get the fuck out of my house now. Let's just save all this.
yeah.
You're right. And
Yeah.
so, and then he had gone away for work for about a week and he was set to come back to meet me.
Okay.
And of course, sending me all the nice messages. I love you and I can't
Oh
wait to
my
see
gosh.
you. So then he decides to go get his flying monkeys, the two friends, and come into my house, go get my stuff. Go get his stuff because we weren't living together,
Okay.
and discards me in a public restaurant. So it was all deception. So I was supposed to pick him up at the train station, right? And then he said, well, I got into this area earlier. And I'm thinking, when is Amtrak ever on time? So that should have been my first red flag.
Right.
It says, can you meet me there? So I'm like, okay, sure. And that's where he discards me in public. And I think he was thinking that I was going to make this big scene. Of course, I was dignified. I look back now, I wish I would have like thrown beer on him, but
Right.
with his personality, of course, that would be, oh my God, she's a terrible. So
Yes,
I'm
because
glad
they
I
turned
handled
it around
it.
on you. Yeah, to make you look like the crazy one, even
Of
though they were
course,
doing something to you.
of
Yeah.
course. Absolutely. So I'm glad I did handle it with dignity. Because yeah, he definitely would have been a little bitch and just like, oh, she assaulted me. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
brutal. You didn't see it coming. Like I know we
Right.
knew we were having some issues, but it's like I loved him so much and
Yeah.
I was like, well, what can we work on? And I look back now, I was taking all the blame for everything of just, well,
Yeah.
maybe I'm unstable, maybe I'm not right.
Yep.
And so, but that was his goal. He wanted to
Of course.
destabilize me. So yeah, it was basically a horrible, humiliating discard. And I'm so glad I'm talking with you today because yeah, a lot of people who are surface level, they were like, "What? What do you mean he broke up with you? He's such a nice guy." So I didn't feel like I was being heard. And
Right.
I'll get in right. And I'll get into the detail of my own story. I'm really going to go into the nasty details
Yeah.
because the way he was treating me leading up to it,
Yeah.
yeah, it was horrendous.
So
So,
I had experienced the reverse discard, so there's a
okay.
little bit of a difference, and so telling my story,
Mhm.
you'll be able to hear the difference. So a couple of years before we got divorced, it was actually January of 2020, my mom passed away, and I believe that was the beginning of the end of our marriage because with that lack of empathy, well, they have some sort of empathy, but they don't care about it. They don't care about using it, but with that lack of empathy,
Right.
he didn't understand why I was so sad and why I was, it's like, well, my mother just died. And we actually figured out later that she probably died of COVID, even though it was January, right? And so it was just a very traumatic end to her sickness. She had had cancer and recovered, and then she died. And so then after that, I decided to leave the school district. The pandemic happened. We were all like struggling with that. We were all stuck in the house together, things like that. And then the next year, um, our sister-in-law passed away from COVID. And so
My.
it was horrible. And so it was really tragic. And she was too young to die, all those things, right? The whole thing. And then he would come home from work and be like, why are you still sad?
Yeah.
Why are you still crying? I didn't even really recover from my mom passing away. And then here's my sister-in-law. So I really believe those last 2 years I was being devalued and really discarded, like slowly discarded.
Yep. Slow.
Slow. And that's the thing people ask, like, what was the defining moment? And it's like, no, it's a slow burn. Like that frog being boiled in the pot. It's a slow burn. And for me,
Right.
and then, also happening at the same time is me having this awakening at the same time. Because what happened was I went to therapy to figure out why I was still sad about my mom and my sister-in-law being gone. Well, because two people just died in your family and you're allowed to be
Right.
sad. This is what I've learned talking to people. It's like I didn't know because we hadn't had such a big tragedy in our life. So this was like, the whatever, the end of 2021, and it was just a terrible time. He stopped talking to me. He stopped being intimate with me. He stopped inviting me places. He would cook himself food, not me. Things like this. This is what devaluing is, and people don't understand. They'll
Yep.
just, and then they'll make an excuse like, well, I didn't know you wanted to eat. But if you're in the house, and our house was 1,600 square feet, I'm right there. Okay. Like
Yeah.
I'm not hiding
Right. And
anywhere.
and that's where the insidious part comes in. It's a
Yes.
mind fuck essentially, because
Yes.
again, it's like they'll do something. I look back now. Of course, I'm starting to recall more events now that I'm
Right.
healed, and I don't love this person anymore. Um, the week of, I call it the week of my devaluation. He made a comment like, "Oh, well, you love to take pills." And, I was
Mm.
taking as needed medication at the time for
Right.
anxiety. And I was like, well, no, I don't love to. This is just something that I'm dealing with. Oh, no, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's confusing. So it's just, okay, maybe it's me being sensitive. And yeah, and that's why it's so hard to just leave, because
Yeah.
it's like this combination between, devalue and soothe.
And
It's
that's the
it's really insidious.
it's so confusing. The trauma bond is so real that the person who's hurting you is also the person who's soothing you, and it's so, oh
Right.
gosh, saying all these terrible things, and then maybe I start crying and he comes over to comfort me, and it's like, you were the one who made me start crying. You know what I mean? It's so confusing, and
Yeah.
you're so bonded. So in August of 22, he came out of the room, ready to leave to go somewhere else again without me. And he said, if this is the way our life is going to be, you probably should tell me you're done. And I was like, why do I
Oh,
have?
of course, leaves it on you, right?
Yes, and that's the reverse discard. They
Yep.
have made you want to leave so bad, but they're never going to leave because
Oh no.
they have already been playing the victim in the background, telling everybody that they're in a terrible marriage. They're not telling the part where they're treating their wife like shit. And so I said to him, I said, "Why do I have to tell you I'm done?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just too big a pussy to say it." And I always say that word because it's so crass. And just to
Yep.
know the way that narcissists speak to the person they love the most. This is how they speak to them. And people think, oh, he's such a nice guy. That's how he spoke to me, the man that I was with for 33 years. And so I always use that word, and it's crass and disgusting.
Hmm.
I'm like, I
I don't,
don't,
yeah, same.
and I don't care because people have to know those words came out of his mouth. And so I started to think one more time. I was like talking, going, well, maybe if we could figure this out. Oh my gosh, I just wanted him to figure out how to love me, right? I wanted it so bad. And that's
Yeah.
such a childhood trauma response. I just wanted to be loved. That inner child in me needed to be healed. She's been healed already. I've been doing healing work. It's like
Yeah.
she's been healing. So that was the hardest thing. And so, mid sentence, I remembered my therapist saying to me, you've been infinitely clear with him. Is he unwilling or is he unable to make a change?
Right.
And I thought to myself, he's unwilling and I'm
Yeah.
done. So I couldn't waste one more breath. I stopped talking mid sentence, stood up and said, I'm done. And I left the room. I didn't talk to him for 2 days. And then, and then this motherfucker Monday morning says, were you serious about getting a divorce? I'm like, oh my God. I go, yep.
Wow.
I was just like, because the thing that people have to understand, and this was hard for me to hear, was that they are telling people in the background, there's that smear campaign. They're telling everybody how terrible you are.
Mhm.
I didn't
Yep.
know that that was necessarily true, but my grown kids confirmed that yes, that's what he was doing. So that's the reverse discard where they don't come right out and say it. They force your hand so that you say it and you ask for the divorce. That way they can tell everybody that you're the bad guy because it fits their narrative. And it really sucks. And that's okay. But, I mean,
Yeah.
it sucked then. It doesn't suck now. I'm glad he's gone.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, I still to this day, I mean, now, a year and a half later, I mean,
Yeah.
I am so thankful to God for his impulsivity and him discarding me. I mean, because
Yeah.
I can't even imagine if I had gotten married to this dude. Like
Yeah.
my finances would have been fucked over.
Yeah.
My health would have gone downhill because, and again, I'm going into all of these details in my upcoming season, but I was
Yes.
drinking a lot to try to fit
Right.
in with his lifestyle because all he wanted to do was drink and play darts. Like that's it.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just that would have been my life. And yeah, and it's just yeah, I definitely do believe that it happened for a reason. I mean, not to get too spiritual or anything, but
Hmm.
I really started to realize like I felt like a higher power was protecting me by
Yeah.
um him discarding me, even though it was horrific and painful at the time.
Well, let me
Um,
ask you because I know my answer for me. Would you have stayed if he wouldn't have discarded you?
oh God. Um, Honestly, I probably would have. I mean, the way I
Yeah.
was at the time, I
Yes,
just was
exactly.
so thrilled. Oh, he finally loved me, but now he's taking it away. Yeah, I probably would
Yeah.
have.
Oh, I
So,
think I would have
yep.
too. I think I would have stayed forever. And this is the blessing in being on the other side is that the
Hmm.
healing work that I've been doing for the last 2 years has really shown me I've healed that little Laura, that inner child. I've done all that work. Why we don't blame an abuse, but you want to look at why did you choose the person you chose
Yes.
and why did you get chosen and where are your boundaries? I didn't have any. I didn't even know what boundaries were. And
Oh,
so
same.
right?
I
And so
didn't either.
now it's
I
like
was such a
learning all
people
that.
pleaser. Oh my
Right.
God.
Right. And that's the hard thing is they are attracted to those people pleasers, the people who are givers, but you have to remember that takers will take. So you have to be
Oh yeah.
careful. They don't care. They're just like, "Oh, she's a giver? Great. I'm a taker. This works out perfectly."
Correct. Yeah, and again, and more people that I've talked to about him, who I'll be again my own season, they kind of said that's his MO. He's kind of like this smooch blob, no
Oh.
pun intended. Yeah, like just a moocher. Like there
Yeah.
again, with the line of work he was in, that did involve like traveling and possibly staying with people. However, a lot of people were telling me that like one of my favorite we were in a multiple community for an art form together, and one of my favorite things that this other woman said to me who knew him,
Okay.
not romantically, but she's like, well, I don't think he can last much longer if he keeps drinking beer and mooching off people. And that came out of nowhere. Like I didn't even tell her all the details of
Wow.
like, so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so that's your MO. That's just what you do.
That's how
You're a
he is.
mooch
Yeah, exactly.
and you blob. It's the nickname the blob is appropriate at this point. So because it just you kind of I mean, you've seen the movie The Blob, it's kind of like this big thing that just like sucks everything in and just
Yes,
feeds off
exactly.
of.
Yeah.
It's appropriate now. So
It makes sense, right? I know,
right.
and that's why when I was writing my book and I had a couple other titles, things that could have been a little more clinical sounding or whatever. We did SEO the getting over narcissistic abuse because that's what people search for. But I was like married to a nice guy. That's it. Because if I
Yeah.
heard he was a nice guy one more time, I was going to kill somebody. And that's a
Right.
thing. That is the facade. I helped curate that facade, that's for sure. You know, I always say I lied so people would like him. He lied
Yep.
so people wouldn't like me. And it's like we are not the same because I really curated our whole life. And you do that when you're in narcissistic abuse because you don't want people, well, half the time you don't even understand what's happening. I just knew my husband was difficult and I had to figure out a way for him to be happy wherever we were.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I helped curate the facade. And so many people when we were getting divorced said, "Oh, you look like you had a perfect marriage." And I said, "Okay, well, number 1, no one has a perfect marriage. And number
Right.
2, I curated quite the facade. You guys are going to see who he is, but um, who he is he got right into another relationship. And so then now they're curating another facade. And that's the
Of
way it is. They
course.
can't be alone. And
No,
I kind of want to talk about that
not at
because
all.
I want people to understand because this was hard for me to understand when he got right into another relationship after 33 years with me. It really broke my heart and I didn't understand it. But when I started researching narcissistic abuse, I understood that they can't be alone. They have to have somebody. They don't take the time to have some introspection and see what they did wrong. Do you
Nope.
think they're ever sitting around going, "What did I do wrong in my last relationship?" No, they don't give two shits. They're just off to the next girl.
Absolutely not.
They find
Based on
someone to
my
join, yeah, they find
yep,
someone to join the circus with them and someone who
basically.
is not going to well, someone who is accepting their low effort because
Correct.
you
Which I was,
stopped.
that was me for a while,
Of
sadly.
course, it was all of us, I stopped accepting it, right? We stopped accepting that low effort, all the bullshit. But this new person is now accepting it. She has her fantasy goggles on. And just like we did at the beginning, look, I totally get it, but it's not okay to me. Like, to be taking advantage of another person is just sickening to me,
Right.
but there's nothing I can do. You can't, let me just tell everybody right now, you can't go warn them because have been
Nope.
already told, everyone's been told that you're the crazy ex. And so, and my ex might come and tell you that I did all these things. And, but they're not going to believe you. But when I understood that
Well,
they can't be alone, it made me feel better because I felt like garbage. I felt thrown away like
right.
garbage until I
Yeah,
understood.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you had that revelation, Laura, because I was the same way when I had that realization. And it's so funny, again, now that I'm reflecting back, the week before he was discarding me, he's just like, I'm just used to having people around me and I feel isolated out here. Because, we live in the
Yes.
rural area. He was staying with me, not to mention he was getting a free place to stay.
Right.
I'm isolated, babe. I'm isolated. I'm like, well, what? And so, of course, me being the fixer, I offered
Yeah.
to just drive him so he can see friends. It's like, well, yeah, I don't want you to feel that way. But then I realized he literally just told on himself. I'm used to having people around me with the profession he was in and just how he is as a person, constant external validation,
Yeah.
constant. Um, and I'm looking
Yeah.
at our whole relationship now. I think I was really nothing but kind of arm candy. So just so he could tell people,
Yeah.
oh, I'm dating this woman in the States and I'm dating a
Uh,
therapist. I really think it was all, yeah, they want external validation and dopamine hits above anything else. They cannot be alone.
yeah.
So
It's
absolutely.
it's and that's why I think bringing awareness and then us talking about it, and telling others like their kind of like their patterns and everything, because for me it broke my heart. And so once I started to understand, I
Yes.
was even telling my kids, I'm like, once I found out about her, the quote unquote new girlfriend, she had always been there, just so everyone knows. She was groomed right in front of my face. And this was, I just talked about this recently on a video because she was groomed right in front of my face because when you are so manipulated, you allow almost anything because
Mm-hmm.
you've been taught not to make a fuss or you're too difficult. You're making a big deal out of nothing. We're just friends. I don't know how many times I heard that and I'd be like, "You guys are acting like inappropriate. Like it's not okay." And he'd be like, "We're just friends. Oh, you know me. I'm a flirty guy. We're just friends. We're just friends. We're just friends." Okay, otherwise known
Yeah.
as his second wife. You know what I mean? Like they got married. Like you were not just friends. You were a freaking liar from the beginning. And I told him that to his face once
Mm-hmm.
I found out about her. I
Yeah, and
said,
you should have. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
know.
said
And
you've
it's
always been a fucking liar because I asked you a million times. I said, "Why didn't you divorce me?" Listen to this because you guys, this reverse discard is real because I said, "Why didn't you just divorce me to be with her?" And he's like, "I thought we were just friends." They will lie. Listen, they're
mhm.
together and he's still lying. He would still lie right this minute and they're married.
So and at that point, I'm so glad that you're in a place to where you can just kind of say this woman, well, good luck. And now I'm not in any contact with my ex at all. I mean, I don't want to see, I don't want to hear
Me either.
anything. I mean, if we, unfortunately we do have a mutual community, so I
Oh,
sometimes
okay.
I just set the boundary of, hey, I don't talk about that time unless it's on, um, but but
Right.
yeah, it's one of those things. When you have that revelation, there's no going back, is there? It's just like,
There's
good
really
luck, have
not.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's really not. And I know, especially the way women are built, we do want to, warn others and stuff. And so this is the only way you can do it because they are telling others you're crazy. And so no one's going to believe you. I had a lot of people tell me they didn't really understand what I was talking about. He wasn't that way with them. No, he's not that way with anyone else. When you're the target, that's the way
Yep.
it is. And that's the hard part about covert narcissists is that at home they're different. And I know this has been a discussion with people saying, like, do they know what they're doing? But yes, damn well they know what they're doing because they don't abuse everybody. They only abuse certain people. And they are only abusing,
Mm-hmm.
and they also know when to perform, quote unquote perform for an
Yep.
audience, right? So like there'll be a lot of friends around and they'll be like the one who picks up the check or the one that just like dotes on you and all that. And it's like they know when to perform. So
Absolutely.
they know very well what they're doing. And then when you get home, you're reprimanded for the way you behaved, or you're so embarrassing, you were so loud, you were so quiet, you were so whatever. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If you try to be perfect, you will never be perfect for them.
You will never, and you'll never be good enough. You never,
You're
no matter
never good
what.
enough.
I mean, I always use this example, like, freaking Sandra Bullock, who's like beautiful, got cheated on. So what does that say?
Yes,
It's not you.
exactly.
You're
Right.
never going to be up to the standards of people like that. And another thing I
Right.
wanted to talk about too, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your episodes, is no contacts. Now, if
Yes.
you're able to do
Yes.
complete no contact, I 100% recommend. Now, in my situation, luckily, we don't share kids together. We never got married. I mean, I could completely cut off I'm at a point where I don't want to see anything on media. I don't want to hear.
Yes.
It's nothing.
Yes.
Nothingness is beautiful. However, if you're not able to go no contact, because of whether share children,
Uh-huh.
that's where those strict boundaries have to come in for your own mental health, of just, you have to
Yes.
almost tell yourself, okay, I have to interact with this person, but we're going to keep it very surface level, very, very, very surface level.
Yes. Gray rocking, where you just are
Yep.
talking about the subject matter. So I know the people that have to co-parent, which I don't. My kids are grown. We do only have one child that speaks to him. So my ex's phone number is still in my phone and he can contact me because he does have contact with our grown son, and so they've been away on vacation together, so I do want to be able to be contacted, but otherwise I never want to see his stupid face ever again. And so
No.
I'm on full, and this is the only way you're really going to heal from that trauma bond. You can't go peek at their social media. You
Nope.
can't text them. I did send a really vile text to him, but after that I was done. But I said everything I wanted to say because listen, after 33 years, I was like, I just wanted to, and I wanted to know how long they'd been sleeping together. And I told him, I said, I have to go to the OBGYN to go get STD testing because you guys are such pieces of shit. And you won't admit when you started sleeping together. They're like, we didn't do anything until after
Yeah,
the
of
third of our, and
course.
I'm like, of course, that's what you're saying. Let me tell you, my doctor looked at me and was like, okay, sweetie, we're going to go ahead and test you because they didn't
Yeah.
believe him either. So going full no contact on your phone and also on all social media, block the living hell out of everybody because you do not want to see them going on with their life because look, we curate on social media this really great life and it's just going to hurt you if you peek at it. I know from experience. I
Right.
peeked and I was like, ugh,
Yeah.
and I didn't even want them back, but your brain wants that dopamine hit and that's why you have to do the good healing and start focusing on your hopes and dreams. Now, people who do co-parent, they use a co-parenting app, and then that way you
Perfect.
don't
Yep.
ever have to allow them to just text you. You can use that app to only
Yes,
talk
that's
about,
smart.
yeah, only talk about the kids.
And set that boundary. Just say,
Yes.
I'm only talking. I mean, because they'll try you for sure. They
Yeah.
will.
And you
So
don't
you
even
just have
have to
to
say
almost
anything. You can just, when they start
no.
talking about something else, you can say, we're no longer talking about the kids. I'll see you on Saturday at 10 a.m. when you pick
Correct.
up little Johnny. Like that's it.
Correct. And it's
Because,
okay to say I'm only discussing things regarding the kids, or like in my
yeah.
case, if someone in this mutual community asked about
Yes.
this person, I'm just gonna say I don't discuss that. And that's
Yes.
it. That's really, and that's everyone needs to know and respect their own boundaries, because my statement, I'm not going to discuss that, that's a complete sentence. You don't need to
You don't have
explain
to
yourself.
explain yourself. No, and people will want to be like, "Well, I want to know." And there's certain people you feel safe talking about it with, but
Yeah.
people want to know and all these things, but it's like it's just weird, and I understand that it gets like people just do want to know, and I'll be like, I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk about this or that or that. Now I feel like I have told everybody all my business, but I've actually kept some things to myself because
Yeah. And what's great, Laura, for you, and I think for me too, is that one thing for me that this podcast has helped do is to set a hard boundary with myself. It's like, this is the only place, and in therapy, my own, that I will be discussing this subject. Any other
okay,
area of my life, I don't want him involved in. I don't want him in my thoughts. I
yeah,
don't want him in my extracurricular activities. I
yeah,
mean, nothing. So I think this is really good.
yeah.
It's a great boundary to have, of just, this is the place to process this. And of course, therapy as well.
Yeah, and so let's talk about some of the ways we've done some healing. So you say you've been doing therapy, and so
I have, yep.
what other things have you done to help heal from this?
Well, I mean, for me personally, it was a variety of things.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I kind of went into a cocooning phase in January of this year, because I will be honest, when this first happened, I hit the ground running of submitting my story to podcasting, and I had to kind of
Oh,
sit and
okay.
realize that might have been too soon,
Yeah,
because I think I was avoiding the negative emotions of just grief, because it is grief, because you
it
are
is.
grieving the idea of what you thought you were going to have, and who you thought this person were. And I'll be honest, I what I can tell people is, don't skip that, because it will surface in other areas. So I decided to go ahead and just deal with that. I do my own therapy. I also went on something called the Reframe app, because I was having an issue with masking feelings with alcohol,
Oh,
based
okay.
on like, so that's super helpful. Going to different groups, and just for me, really, really recognizing and being present in the moment of just, and gratitude has been a big thing too, of recognizing, like, for example, I'm doing backstage for a show this coming weekend, and I make it very conscious of, no, this man, well, man child, I'll just say, has
Right.
stolen too much of my headspace as it is. I will not allow myself to think about them when I'm in this moment, because
That's
they've stolen
awesome.
enough. So
Yeah.
if you can always, to the listeners, if you can just tell yourself, there's a time and place to process this person and think about them, but don't let them consume you. They've done enough of that for your headspace.
That's for sure. So I've been doing therapy up until recently, and then I've done a lot of holistic type things. I went to the beach because the
Nice.
beach is so healing. That the waves are
Yes.
proven to really regulate your nervous system, because your nervous system is going to be so dysregulated. You're going to
Oh,
have
it's shot.
a
It's
very high
crazy.
level of anxiety and all those things. Like I
Yep.
wasn't sleeping, I wasn't doing any of those things. Um, and then I've done a lot of holistic things, meditation, hypnosis, breath work, all those
Mhm.
things, and then I'm in some groups where it's been a 6 month process of almost like a holistic wellness, almost therapy group with a few other people. And it's been great. We talk about these things, we work on our inner child. I've healed so much. I feel like I'm in such a good place. And to the point where some people aren't around anymore because the new healed
Yeah.
Laura doesn't make sense to them. They may
Yep.
not be in that same place that you are. And so this has been really surprising to me The people who are no longer around, I have tons of friends who are still around, and then I have new friends who have come in, because
Hmm.
when you're trying to cling on to those old friends that just don't fit your life anymore, those friends, if they leave, it makes room for some new people to come in your life. And so it's been, I have plenty of friends who are like, who have been there to support me and encourage me. But to see some close friends leave my life because they don't understand this part of me, it's been hard to deal with, but it's actually, I've been okay with it lately.
Yeah.
At first I was like literally crying all the time, going, I don't understand. Why doesn't anybody like me? But it's
Yeah.
like, well, because I'm a good
Yeah.
person.
Well, right. And exactly. And I see you post things like this on social media all the time, which is really inspiring. And you have to, and our listeners do need to realize that
Yeah.
not everybody is gonna like the healed version of you, and
Yeah.
not everybody deserves the healed version of you. It's like you're a good
Oh,
person, but guess what? This time you have boundaries and expectations. Like you refuse to be treated like shit again. And people
I
are gonna
love
try
that.
you sometimes.
I love that you said that not everyone deserves the healed version of you. God, Lauren, that was so good.
Right.
No, seriously, that was so
Not everybody
it's
does. It's true.
no, it's so true, because literally I feel like it's this another level of my healing. I'm still like going to, like, I want to be a better person. I'm trying new things and whatever, and not everybody understands that. It's like, oh, we liked Laura the way she was. Yeah, I'm like, you liked it because I had no boundaries and I didn't do anything about anything.
Right.
But like, Laura with boundaries is like, no, I don't do that. I don't allow you to talk to me that way, and those kinds of things. And people don't understand that. The people who are going to be mad about you setting boundaries are the ones who benefited you not having any. But
Yep.
learning healthy boundaries was the ultimate act of self-love, and you have to come out of this on the other side with so much self-love. You know how much you loved that idiot?
Right.
Okay, well,
The
fix your,
clown,
yeah, the clown. Okay,
the circus clown. Yeah.
imagine, I mean, imagine pouring all that into yourself and just loving yourself. That's where you have to be. Not so that you're ready for another relationship, but just so that you're ready for just who you should become. Because you've been held back.
Yeah.
Look, I'm doing all these things I never wanted to do. I'm writing books. I'm painting. I'm trying new sports. I'm doing whatever I
See,
want
it's
because
amazing. And it's
I
like
no
getting
one's
back,
stopping me. Yes.
right. And it's almost like for me, and it kind of sounds like with you too, getting back to yourself of before this person entered your life. Now, not your naive self with no boundaries, but like for me, I've been doing the same thing. I'm getting back in, like back to Irish dancing, back to theater,
Yes.
and back to singing, and actively saying, no, I deserve all this. Like I'm working hard, but I also, yeah, it's almost like back to your creativity and just
Yeah.
your true authentic self is,
Well,
and
and
it's
it's,
really amazing.
well, when you're in these relationships that are so toxic, you're finding that your partner, your toxic partner, is probably telling you you're not good at that anyway. Like, why should you even try those things? Because you're not going to be good at it, or I'm better at whatever. And I hated that kind of thing, And so I wanted to try painting. Guess what? I went to a painting class. I took a month of painting, and look, I actually painted a decent painting. Because why? I wasn't
Hmm.
scared to try, because I knew I wouldn't go home and somebody goes, yeah, so what? You know what I mean? Because you think they don't talk to you that way? Yes, they do. Outside of the community, they're telling everybody, oh my gosh, you look beautiful. You're great. Everything you do is amazing. And then at home, they go, yes, so what? You painted a picture. I could have done that. And it's like,
Right.
and so now you have freedom to live the life you've always wanted to live. And that's where you should be.
Exactly. Exactly. And I really hope, and I'm sure you'll agree as we close that, the listeners, I say this at the end of every episode, just hang in there, stay with us,
Yeah.
take brain breaks. You have to take some breaks from
Yes.
digesting this information, but you will get there. And once you're there,
Yes.
it's so beautiful and so transformative. There's no
Yeah.
going back to the old you.
There's not. You're not going to want to go back. So, Lauren, where can everybody find you if they want to connect with you?
Sure. So I mainly on Instagram, I am Lauren underscore wiki wiki. I just made it a catchphrase. And I also, that's for the list of my blog my blog website is listed there as well. So Instagram is probably the best place. I am on TikTok, but I think I'm a little old. What I'm finding, I'm trying it, but so yeah, definitely Instagram is the best. And then my blog is, I think, Lauren Wick at Blogs. I don't have it offhand, but yeah, if you find me on
Yeah, we'll put
Instagram, that's
everything
where
in the
you can,
show notes so that people
yeah.
can find you.
And
Yeah.
same with you. Yeah, and same with you, Laura. Where can people find you?
So that's where I'm at podcast on all the socials. And yes, I am on TikTok. And guess what? The people will find you. Don't you worry. You just got to keep posting because they like talking about the narcissists. But yes,
Oh yeah,
Instagram is where my people are. But yes, there's some people on
right.
TikTok as well. But that's where I'm at podcast.com. You can find every single link. You can find all my stuff, my books, everything. I have resources for people, and Lauren, I'll stick your information on there so people can find you.
Yep.
Because I also provide a bunch of resources for people in different ways, divorce and healing and all that. So many finances, so many things. So as I'm doing these interviews, so that's where I'm at podcast on all the socials. Just go looking for me. I'm there.
Awesome.
Well,
Yes.
thank
Well,
you
Laura, I
so
really
much.
appreciate it. I mean, this has been so inspiring. I'm so glad that I just found you online, and I just
I
like I said, I need
know.
to connect with this woman. I
I
mean,
know. It's
I
so
love the title
fun.
of your pod. That's where I'm at, and like mine, life after discard, because, and
It's
I will say
perfect.
my famous phrase at the end of every episode, Laura, life looks so much better on you after discard.
Thank you. Doesn't it? And I
It
always
does.
say at the end of every episode, your voice matters. So thanks so much for being here. I just loved this conversation we had, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. So thanks so much,
Indeed.
guys. Go on Apple and Spotify and rank us and love us and all those things. Go on the socials. Tell the socials you love
Yep.
us. Tell Podcast Land you love us. We want to keep doing this work, so you got to click all the buttons, click all the likes, click all the follows, so that Podcast Land knows you love us. So thanks again for being here, Lauren. I appreciate it.
Thank you.